Imagine standing at the base of this really majestic rushing waterfall.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
Yeah, so the mist is cooling your face. It's a warm June morning. And you look up on the banks and like families are laying out towels. They're soaking up the sun.
Oh, kind of like they're at the beach or something?
Exactly like a beach. People are wading into the creek to cool off, and you've got these professional photographers adjusting their tripods to capture this pristine, breathtaking, natural wonder.
Sounds idyllic. Like a scene right out of a national park brochure.
It really does. But what if I told you that this untouched, serene, natural wonder isn't natural at all?
Wait, really?
Yeah. What if, beneath all that cascading water and the moss, you are actually looking at a massive, broken 19th century machine?
Oh, wow. Well, that totally changes the entire experience of the landscape, right? I mean, Suddenly you aren't just looking at geology anymore. You're looking at an artifact.
Exactly.
You're looking at human ambition that has just been slowly swallowed whole by the environment over the course of a century.
And that tension, between the industrial scars we leave on the earth and nature's ability to turn those scars into sanctuaries, that is the core of our deep dive today. We are exploring the fascinating life cycle of American industrial spaces.
That's such a great topic.
It really is. And to do that, we have this incredible primary source we're pulling from. It's an excerpt from a travel blog post published on March 20th, 2026.
Okay.
Recent?
Release.
Yeah, very recent. The blog is called Red Solo Traveler, and it's written by a guy named Louis. His post is titled Chasing Waterfalls at Vickery Creek Park. He also, he pulls in some really fantastic historical context from an Explore Georgia write-up just to kind of ground his whole experience.
Which is super helpful. So the mission for this deep dive is to follow Louis on this highly specific journey into a park that's sitting right in the shadow of Atlanta.
Right.
And by tracking his footsteps, we really want to discover what this single location teaches you about hidden histories, the raw resilience of geography, and those surprising, artificially created natural wonders that might literally be sitting just a few miles from your front door.
Yeah, because to really appreciate what Louis finds at Vickery Creek Park, we have to understand the mindset he brings with him. Because Louis mentions early in his post that he grew up in New England.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
Right. If you've spent any time in the Northeast, it is just, it's absolutely dotted with these massive, hulking old brick mill buildings.
Oh, yeah, they're everywhere up there.
They really are. And Louis says he has this ingrained soft spot for them. And he points out this crucial historical fact, which is that these factories were almost always situated right alongside rivers and creeks.
Well, yeah, because before the modern decentralized electrical grid, power wasn't just a wire. You could simply run to a cheap plot of land on the edge of town.
Right. You couldn't just plug a factory into a socket.
Exactly. Power was a physical, geographic force. I mean, it was gravity literally pulling water down a slope. So to operate a massive manufacturing operation in the 1800s, you had to capture the kinetic energy of a rushing river.
Which meant you had to build right on top of it.
Right. You built a dam to create a drop, and then you channeled that water to turn a massive wheel or a turbine. And that rotational energy was physically transferred, like through shafts and belts, to run thousands of individual spinning machines and looms all at once.
It boggles the mind. Which means the architecture was entirely captive to the geography.
Completely.
You couldn't build the factory where it was convenient for you or the workers. You had to build it where the water was dropping.
You were tied to the river.
But eventually, the technology changed, right? The textile industry moved away. Electricity allowed factories to be built practically anywhere. And those massive brick buildings were just left behind.
Just abandoned.
Yeah, for decades, they were largely viewed as abandoned eyesores.
Total urban decay. The remnants of a dead era.
Exactly. But Louis points out that recently we've seen this massive wave of repurposing.
Oh, for sure.
What used to be a deafening soot-covered factory in New England, or in this case, Georgia, is now being transformed into modern apartments, chic offices, public schools, craft breweries, and, local parks.
Yeah, I love seeing that.
Me too. Okay, let's unpack this for a second, because it makes me think of these ruins as almost like a hermit crab finding a new shell.
Oh, I like that.
Right. Because society outgrew the original industrial animal that lived there, but the sturdy brick shell remained behind, just waiting to be filled with a completely new, vibrant kind of life.
That is a great analogy. And that shell metaphor highlights a massive fundamental shift in human psychology and just how we value space in general.
How so?
Well, for a century or more, our relationship with these specific waterways was entirely extractive. When a 19th century industrialist looked at a rushing creek, they weren't admiring its beauty.
No, definitely not.
They were calculating its utility. They were asking, how much manufacturing power can I physically extract from that current?
It was just a wet engine to them.
A wet engine, yes. But today, our economy has shifted, and so has our relationship with the landscape. We're no longer extracting raw manufacturing utility. We're extracting lifestyle and community value.
That's a huge difference.
It really is. We look at that exact same waterway and those exact same brick shells, and we value them for recreation, for living spaces, for mental health and relaxation. We've basically gone from the machinery of industry to the machinery of well-being.
I love that, the machinery of well-being. But here's where it gets really interesting. Because if these buildings are shells, the ones Louise is walking through down in Georgia have a particularly brutal layer of sediment attached to them.
Oh, the history is intense.
Yeah, the history of Vickery Creek isn't just about industry quietly packing up and moving on. It is about catastrophic destruction. Louis includes an excerpt from Explore Georgia that details the history of this site, which was the Roswell Manufacturing Company mills.
And the timeline of this specific geography is just an absolute masterclass in human persistence.
It really is. So, get this. The original mills on this site were constructed in 1839 and 1853.
Okay.
And they hum along for a few decades until July 7th, 1864. That's when they are burned to the ground by Union forces during the Civil War.
Just total destruction.
Total destruction. The buildings are completely gone. So, what do? After the war, they clear all the ashes and they rebuild the 1853 mill.
Wow.
Right. They get it fully operational again. And then fast forward to 1926, and the mill is destroyed by fire again.
Leveled to the foundation for a second time.
Which is just crazy to me, because if I own a building, right, and it is burned down in a literal war.
Yeah.
And then I spend an absolute fortune to rebuild it, and then it burns down again decades later. At what point do you take the hint?
You'd think they would just give up.
I would. I would decide that this specific patch of dirt is cursed, and I am building my factory literally anywhere else. The decision to keep rebuilding in the exact same footprint, it just seems like irrational stubbornness.
It definitely seems stubborn through a modern lens, right? Because today mobility is so cheap, we can build anywhere. But this goes back to the mechanics of water power we were discussing earlier.
Right.
The buildings themselves were fragile. Obviously, they couldn't survive an invading army, and they couldn't survive an accidental fire. But the water power of Vickery Creek was so economically vital, so incredibly lucrative, that human beings really had no choice but to keep returning to that exact same spot.
Because all the subterranean infrastructure was already there.
Exactly. People don't realize that the most expensive, labor-intensive part of a 19th century water-powered mill isn't the brick walls.
Really?
No, it's the dam. It's the retaining walls. It's the deep channels they carved into the solid bedrock to direct the water flow to the turbines.
Oh, wow. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, so even when the building burns, that geographic engineering remains intact. The sheer raw value of that manipulated geography dictated human behavior. The river was basically the only power outlet in town.
So they had to keep plugging back into it.
Precisely.
Right.
Clearing the ashes and stacking the bricks again and again.
Wow. Geography dictates human persistence. The sheer gravity of that investment just kept pulling them back.
It's fascinating.
So the 1926 fire happens. The ruins are finally left behind for good this time. And that brings us to the present day.
Right.
Louis drives out to the space, and we get to see what a century of rest does to a site that was defined by destruction.
And he sets the scene vividly in his post. It's a warm June morning. He mentions he's wearing his trusty beat-up sneakers, and he pulls his rental car into the park.
And the very first thing he notes, which I found super interesting, is that the parking lot is, quote, rather small and sparsely filled with cars.
Yeah, he makes a whole point about that.
He does. He actually reflects on it. Because normally, in our modern world, if you pull up to an attraction and the parking lot is just dead empty, it induces a lot of anxiety.
Oh, totally. You start wondering if the place is closed or if you typed the wrong address into your GPS.
Right, or if the location is just a complete dud. Because we really rely on crowds to validate our choices.
It's social proof, like how an empty restaurant always makes us a little nervous.
Exactly. But Louis writes that instead of hesitation, this empty lot washed him with an immediate sense of calm. It turns the whole experience into something intimate. It's almost like, have you ever played a video game and found a secret area off the main map?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Right. That lack of crowds makes the discovery feel exclusively yours. If there were huge tour buses lined up at Vickery Creek, it would just feel like a packaged tourist trap. But because it's quiet, it feels like a personal revelation.
That intimate feeling is honestly the perfect primer for the sensory inversion he's about to experience.
Sensory inversion. Tell me more about that.
Well, think about the history we just covered. For nearly a century, this exact geographic coordinate literally defined the word bustling. It was a massive, deafening manufacturing hub.
So if you stood exactly where Louis parked his rental car back in 1880, calm is probably the last thing you would feel.
Oh, the absolute last thing. The noise would be physically aggressive. You would hear the constant grinding roar of water tearing through those turbines.
Wow.
You'd hear thousands of wooden and metal spindles clacking simultaneously, wagons loading heavy bales of cotton, workers having to shout over the din just to be heard. I mean, it was an epicenter of chaotic industrial labor.
And now Louis steps out of his rental car in his sneakers into that exact same space, and he's greeted by an entirely different soundscape.
A total inversion.
Yeah, he walks past this stunning overlook featuring the old mills, and all he hears is the gentle flow of the creek. He sees this old covered pedestrian bridge that connects this area, which is called Old Mill Park, to the larger Chattahoochee River Trail system.
Right. So a space that he has engineered for absolute chaos has been completely overwritten by absolute tranquility. The original machine shop is just sitting there in ruins, visible right from the interpreted trail. Quiet and still.
It's beautiful. So he writes that he crossed the covered bridge, ventured onto a dirt trail, and just continued to explore, quote, uncertain of where his journey would lead.
Which is the best way to hike.
Totally.
Yeah.
He climbs this set of stairs completely unscripted, just letting the geography guide him, and following that dirt trail leads him to the absolute climax of his hike.
The crown jewel of Vickery Creek.
Yes. He ventures deeper and discovers this magnificent waterfall area. He describes it as truly majestic, leaving him in absolute awe.
I mean, the pictures are stunning.
They really are. As he ascends a hill, there are all these overlooks where he pauses to take photos. The sound of the rushing water is powerful. It's mesmerizing. And as we mentioned at the start of this deep dive, it has this incredible communal vibe to it.
Yeah, families laying out towels.
Right. Families soaking up the sun like a bustling beach, people taking a swim in Big Creek. It feels like he has stumbled upon this pristine, untouched natural oasis, just hidden out in the forest.
But as Explore Georgia confirms in his historical notes, that majestic waterfall was created artificially.
Yep.
The creek was dammed to provide water power for those mills. It is a man-made 19th century wall.
Which creates this brilliant irony. So what does this all mean for our idea of nature? Louis is captivated by the serene beauty of a majestic waterfall. But this isn't a natural wonder at all. He is actually admiring a massive piece of heavy industrial infrastructure.
It really forces you to reconsider the definition, because this is the central paradox at the heart of Vickery Creek Park.
Right.
When that dam was constructed in the 1800s, it was a severe, violent interruption of the local ecosystem. I mean, they literally choked the creek. They flooded the banks upstream. They starved the banks downstream, all just to harness kinetic energy.
It was a monument to human dominance over the landscape.
Exactly. It was the ultimate utilitarian structure.
But nature has a very long memory, doesn't it?
It does. And a very slow, persistent mechanism for reclaiming space. Over the decades, after that 1926 fire, the industry abandoned the site entirely. The maintenance stopped.
But the river kept flowing.
The river kept flowing. The constant friction of the water slowly smoothed all the harsh edges of the masonry. Freeze and thaw cycles created these tiny micro fissures in the mortar, which allowed dirt to settle in.
And then the seeds blow into the dirt.
Right, roots take hold, and slowly the forest just crept down and completely integrated the structure into itself.
It's as if nature looked at this massive stone wall and said, all right, you left this here, so I'm just going to work it into the ecosystem.
And in doing so, nature transformed a piece of utilitarian machinery into a universally beloved sanctuary. Those families swimming, those photographers adjusting their lenses to get the perfect shot of the cascading water, they're interacting with a human artifact that nature has effectively digested and naturalized.
Digested and naturalized. I love that phrasing.
It completely blurs the line between the artificial and the natural. because given enough time, human interference simply becomes part of the geology.
So when you take a photo of that beautiful waterfall, you're actually photographing an old, broken machine. A machine that has been reprogrammed by the forest to produce peace instead of cotton.
That is a very powerful way to look at the landscape around us.
It is. The philosophy of this place is just fascinating, but I do think we need to ground this journey in practical reality for the listener.
Definitely.
Because hearing about this majestic, ruined oasis probably has you wanting to lace up your own sneakers and go find it. And since Louis is a travel blogger, he thankfully provides all the logistics.
Yeah, the practical details of tracking down this artifact.
So Vickery Creek Park is sometimes referred to locally as Old Mill Park, which is really important to know if you are plugging it into a map app. The physical address is 85 Mill Street in Roswell, Georgia. Louis recommends visiting in the late morning to early afternoon for the best light and the quietest trails. And if it happens to be busy, he notes there are plenty of other great parks and waterfalls in the surrounding area to explore instead.
Awesome.
But the detail that Louis puts in bold letters, the detail that really struck me, is that the park and the parking lot are completely free to visit.
Free to park, first come, first served.
Yeah. And think about the massive historical shift that phrase represents. I mean, in the 1850s, this site was privately owned. It was a heavily guarded, hyper-capitalist means of production.
Oh, absolutely.
You couldn't just stroll onto the property with a picnic basket to take a nice walk and listen to the birds. It was dangerous, it was strictly private, and you would likely be chased off the grounds by a foreman.
It was an engine of private wealth generation. Access was strictly tied to labor. If you weren't working there, you weren't welcome there.
But today, we see this profound democratization of the space. What was once a private, noisy, dangerous industrial site is now a completely free public amenity.
It's a huge shift.
Anyone, regardless of who they are, can walk the exact same ground the mill owners walked, cross the covered bridge, and sit by the waterfall. The ruins literally belong to everyone now.
And this democratization connects directly back to you, the listener, because the ultimate takeaway from Louis' journey isn't just about adding a park in Roswell, Georgia to your travel itinerary.
Although, if you're near Atlanta, you should absolutely go.
Oh, for sure. Go visit.
Right.
But the broader application is about adopting Louis' mindset wherever you happen to live.
Training your eyes to see the layers.
Exactly. Lou didn't just walk through a park, He walked through time. He let his New England nostalgia for brick mills inform his appreciation for a southern ruin. He allowed himself to wander, uncertain of his destination, and just let the geography speak to him.
And you can do the exact same thing in your own hometown.
Yes. Look at the repurposed buildings in your downtown area. Look at the old railway lines that have been paved over into bike paths. Actively seek out the hidden layers of history in the brick shells and the artificially shaped landscapes in your own backyard.
Because changing your lens changes your entire city.
It really does.
We started this journey with Louis' deep-rooted affection for the brick behemoths of New England, understanding how factories were literally chained to the waterways by this unyielding demand for kinetic energy.
Yep.
We saw how the Roswell mills became a testament to human stubbornness, burning down and being rebuilt simply because the power of Vickery Creek was too valuable to abandon.
And then we followed Louis into the park, experiencing that profound sensory inversion, trading the deafening, aggressive noise of 19th century industry for the absolute tranquility of an uncrowded dirt trail.
And at the end of that trail, we found the majestic waterfall, a 19th century industrial dam beautifully, slowly reclaimed by nature over decades of running water and growing roots.
Transforming a private, closely guarded site of production into a free, democratic oasis for families, swimmers, and photographers.
It's a remarkable journey from an industrial scar to a natural sanctuary.
It truly is.
And, looking at how time and nature have handled the heavy brick-and-mortar ruins of the 19th century leaves me with one final thought for you to mull over.
Okay, what's that?
Well, we know what happened to the mills, right? They burned, they decayed, and the forest swallowed them, turning them into these beautiful, beloved parks. So, what is going to happen to the abandoned spaces of our current era?
Oh, that's a wild thought.
Right. Think about the massive structures we build today to power our modern economy. 100 years from now, let's say in the year 2126, will hikers be lacing up their boots to go wander through the majestic, serene ruins of a sprawling, abandoned 21st century shopping mall?
Wow.
Will families lay out picnic blankets in the crumbling, moss-covered remains of an obsolete million-square-foot server farm?
I can actually picture that.
Will our descendants walk through an overgrown concrete Amazon distribution center, just admiring how beautifully the local vines and wildlife have reclaimed our modern footprint, turning our utilitarian machines into their natural wonders?
Nature always reclaims the space. It's just a matter of what kind of ruins we leave behind for it to digest.
Exactly. It is definitely something to mull over the next time you drive past an empty big box store.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep your eyes open, keep asking questions, and above all, keep exploring the hidden histories sitting right in your own backyard.